Good morning. Welcome to today's webinar. It's Victoria Beal with the LTAP Center here in Ohio, and I'm very pleased to have with me my colleague, Katy Robertson, and she is going to speak to you about the TIMS proposed enhancements. Before I turn things over to Katy, however, I want to make certain that everybody knows how to ask questions because we definitely want this webinar to be interactive. So if you would please look for the question box in your GoToWebinar panel and drop me a hi or hello in there. So that way I know that you have found it and you are ready and able to ask any questions you have as Katy moves through the presentation. Also, we have put in the handout section a downloadable PDF version of today's presentation for you. If you can't download that though on your computer for whatever reason, we'll make certain to send a link out to that after the webinar has concluded with hopefully also a link to a recording. So that's all I have. Katy, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do
Thanks.
this. Good morning, everybody. We were just talking about how it's a beautiful sunny day. So hopefully this will just be a really great way to spend an hour and participate with us in what we're really excited about here in ODOT's Office of Technical Services, working on identifying potential enhancements to the TIMS application. We want your feedback. So there's a survey that will go along with today's presentation, and I think Victoria will be able to share that link, and we'll take a few breaks throughout the presentation to visit that survey. So if you're able to participate with us as we go through it, please do that. Okay, so let's get warmed up with a little overview. Our audience for today, we were hoping to have as many attendees as possible that are already using TIMS on a regular basis. So you should be familiar with the application, but we'll do a little overview. TIMS was released in 2012 as a web mapping application to provide easy access to many enterprise datasets and customized tools. In 2014, we had phase 2 that expanded the site to include multiple pages to meet growing customer needs. In 2016, here, let me catch us up here, we had a pretty significant enhancement that added the Create a Map page to what you pretty much see today. So overall, TIMS has been a great success. It's been recognized by OGRIP and the FHWA for best practices in GIS. It's a valuable tool for at least 5 agencies at the state and federal level and 11 offices across 3 divisions within ODOT. It's grown to include over 80 datasets and 15 custom map viewers. So let's continue this success and make sure that phase 3 enhancements are what the customers need and how and implement the latest technologies. Okay, so we started this process by evaluating the current application in 2019. So that was, over a year ago, but then 2020 happened. So we're gearing back up now, and that's why we want to get your feedback here today. But we did this survey through FormStack in 2019, and we asked users to tell us what's working and what isn't. The results showed that all aspects of TIMS were being used, and that's great, but of course we got a lot of suggestions. So we want to consider what the users have requested and what their growing needs are, but also what's changed in technology and in web development, and what are the new trends for usability within websites. So we dove into all that user feedback and tossed around a lot of ideas, and then we settled into 5 areas of improvement. And that's how we're going to structure today's presentation. We'll step through each of these sections and then take a break in between. So first we'll talk about interface design, data discovery, then tool usability, data comprehension, and the mobile experience. So in between each section, take a quick break, and that'll be your chance to ask us questions, or you can type them in the chat and Victoria will read those questions during our breaks. And then I will even bring up the survey. If you guys are able to bring it up at the same time, I'll just bring it right over and we'll kind of step through it together. All right, so of course we have to have a couple disclaimers. Not all of the enhancement ideas we're considering are represented in this presentation, so this isn't the final word. And we're still finalizing requirements and just gearing up for development. The images that you're going to see here are just mock-ups created with all the limitations of your presenter's ability to yield PowerPoint and Visio, so you might need to use your imagination a little bit. Let's jump into the first section. One major goal for the TIMS enhancements will be to streamline the user interface. Web design is trending towards reduced visual stimulation and navigational complexity. And the goal in redesigning TIMS is to have an interface that will have simple graphics, consolidated links, and then do we even need to completely rethink how we navigate the site? Okay, so of course we can start with the home page, set the stage, and here's a look at TIMS Now for reference. Can we simplify the design with a low contrast background image? This of course isn't the image we'd use, but the idea is that we'd still want to represent the theme of Ohio's roadways, but in a more modern and simple way. How about all those links in the footer? Can we move those to one consolidated admin page? And the idea here is that the sections can expand and contract to minimize scrolling. Can we completely rethink how we navigate? So currently we have all the buttons. Are those still good? Is a list, a drop-down list, maybe more user-friendly? Can we expose more options for searching the site? And in the next section, we're going to consider that a lot more when we talk about a smart search tool or a navigation tool. So stay tuned. But this was our warm up. So let's wrap up this first section and invite everyone to visit that survey page. Hopefully you were able to get that in the chat. It's odot.formstack.com/forms/TIMS_enhancement_survey, in case you need to type that in. And the slide is showing just some ideas of the questions that you're going to see in the survey. We'll just go right over there. So hopefully now you guys can see that. We'll start stepping through it. So in section 1, here's a review in case we have users that want to go back and do the survey later. It'll remind you of what we've talked about in the presentation. And then your first question, super complicated stuff here, guys. So just want to get your opinion on the idea for a simplified background. So I'm going to be like, yes, 5 stars. If you have examples that you would like to submit to us, you can, maybe type in a website, or if you happen to have an image, we have enabled a way for you guys to share that. And second question about consolidating these links on an admin page. Is that going to be more intuitive for you guys to find? Or do you still prefer having all of those footer links so that you can see each of the links separately? I'm going to just pick one. Of course, if you have more thoughts, we welcome all your thoughts and opinions, so feel free to type away in there. And you can see that now the survey wants to go into the second section, so I'm going to put this back away for a few minutes. Okay, let's move on to section 2, data discovery. We're talking about what data exists in TIMS and where does it exist. We recognize that there are a lot of challenges to discovering data within the application, with multiple pages and custom map viewers. So let's consider 3 areas where we might enhance the search capabilities and provide updated ways to enable and view content in TIMS. We'll talk about this navigation tool, updates to the existing data glossary, and then options for the table of contents on the map page or the layers list. So the idea of this navigation tool, we hinted at it on the view of the home page, and maybe it's just a different way to navigate through the pages, right? Maybe it's just a list, or it could be a more dynamic search tool. Users could pick a search type and then either enter text or possibly view a pick list, and that action could depend on the type of search. So for example, if you search for a PID, you would get options for viewing that project information page like we have in current TIMS, or you would be able to go directly to the map page. If you search for a data set, you might get options returned to view that on a map, a link to all the custom viewers that feature that data set, maybe a link directly to the data download, or possibly even initiate a data filter. You gotta be clicking as I go here, guys. Okay, if you search for a map viewer, and maybe here is where it might make more sense for if you pick a map viewer search, it gives you a pick list. So you can see what all the options are there right on the home page. And not pictured, but we could even incorporate a location search where you could type in an address or a log point and then get links directly to the map. Okay, so another idea is enhancing our current glossary. So again, for reference, here is a view of the current glossary page. It opens to a table of all of the attributes, and then to view a list of all the data sets, you click the drop-down list at the top. So what if the glossary page opened to a table of data sets instead of fields? And you could see the data set description, the refresh dates, and any links, and that would all be exposed on the main page. Maybe you would be able to click a column header to sort any of these fields, or at least be able to sort the dataset names. And it would make sense to have a search box that you could type in and then filter as you type. And that filter as you type feature that we have TIMS and different tools, I think is always really useful. So how can we incorporate that more into this next phase of TIMS? And maybe we can even integrate the data download page. Perhaps there's checkboxes along each of the data sets, and you can select one or many. And then just like in current TIMS, you would pick your format and download. Of course, we still need to see all of those view descriptions. So how about you click on the name of a data set and it opens an item page or a metadata page. And each data set would have one of these item pages. And we could include the data set descriptions and then at the bottom, all the field and field descriptions. So we're seeing all the details that we saw on the homepage of the data glossary here also included on the item page. And then similar structure as you see now, the attributes and their descriptions and the ability to export that as a CSV. Okay, our third item. Let's talk about this layer list or the table of contents. Right now in TIMS, our layers are grouped into buckets, and you click to expand a group, and then the layers are listed in 2 columns. We aren't really able to sort these or reorder. So once we've published a layer, it stays in that order, and we can just add them to the end. We know in TIMS Phase 3, we definitely want to be able to view that full layer name. So that probably means dropping the columns and making sure the layer names display fully when the pane is expanded. Right now you can expand the pane, but there's a character limit. And while of course it makes sense to always keep layer names short, it doesn't always work when we have so much data. It would be great if we could see that type to filter behavior here, where typing in the search box would just filter out what you see in the layers list. And the filtering could work with tags, not just layer names. So if you search for traffic, you might get a refresh layer list that looks like this. Do we want to be able to sort the layer list alphabetically? How important is that? Because we really have to rethink things. Is that even possible if we have all of our layers grouped into these buckets? Do we like those groups? Does that help us navigate? Or do we go down this path and consider not having them? Okay, so staying down that path, but let's reset for a second so we can think about data sets that are published to multiple layers. Bridges, for example. In current TIMS, there is a single layer in the create a map, and it's all of the bridges, and it has a single symbol. Then in the structures map viewer, we have the bridge data set filtered out with definition queries and different symbols applied. Do we want the option to see all of these ways to view in one map? So the idea here is kind of similar to how we currently click the assets group to expand and view all the layers within, but maybe you could click a data set and expand to see more ways to view. And if we were to include all layers, well, then we could consider integrating the map viewers. Is that too much? I mean, it might be. So stick with me here for a minute though. Maybe the separate map viewer pages could be replaced by a predefined filter that the users could pick from a pick list. We know that we definitely still want to have a unique URL for each of these, so users could bookmark those in their browsers. But if it's just a predefined filter applied to the table of contents, then it would give a lot of flexibility, and hopefully we'd be able to work that into a URL. Okay, so if that's too far, if we're just packing way too much into this layer list, we can step back for a minute, and maybe we just need a way for users to discover which map viewers feature a particular data set. So we could provide a link to the glossary and include that information there. So we're seeing a right-click context menu by right-clicking on a layer name. You would have some links, and one of them obviously would be directly to that data set's item page. And then on the item page, somehow we can feature links to all the data sets or all of the map viewers, sorry, that data set is featured in. Okay, so let's let all that sink in. And let's visit the survey and get some opinions on these topics. I realized that after the first section, I did not ask if there were any questions, but hopefully if there are, then someone will speak up and tell me to be quiet. Okay,
There were a couple
so
of
section
questions.
2 of our...
Sorry, Katie.
Yeah?
There were a couple
Okay, great.
questions. All right, the first one is, could customer create a frequent, and they put frequent in quotes, analysis procedure that would be reusable by the customer?
Okay, well, if we're talking about the ability to filter data sets or select data sets, then we are going to mention that later because we do get a lot of feedback on that. So stay tuned.
All right, and the next
Hey, Katie,
question
I can
is,
I can
oh,
chime in
sorry.
real quick on that too. I think that wasn't included in this webinar, but that was heavily included in the original survey that we put out last year. Was the ability to create filters or do analysis and then save that or preserve that. There are some technical challenges around that, but it's definitely something that we want to write into our requirements and see if we can find a solution for that, whether it's saving a query on the back end or however that might be, but that is something we're considering.
Okay, we got another question. says, have you thought about having a section for REST services for your GIS? REST spelled R-E-S-T.
So that is also a good question. For those of you who do consume REST services, you've probably found TIMS REST services or asked us at one point, but I think that would be an excellent item to include in that data glossary page. So where we have a specific layer, maybe we can also include a link to the REST endpoint.
Those are all the questions for now.
I love that. Okay, I love that idea. Make sure someone writes that down. Okay, so we'll step through these questions for the section 2 in the survey, and you'll see the print screens match to what we had just viewed. One proposed idea for to enhance TIMS with a dynamic search bar. Search bar would take text input from the user and return a dynamic set of results based on the input. Potential items returned in the search could be the navigation pages, PIDs, available data sets, location information, available map viewers, links to data definitions, and links to data downloads. So what type of items would be useful in a dynamic search return? And you can select all that you think apply. Look, I'm doing it. It's fun. You should too. Okay. If you have something to type in there, go ahead. Let's see what else we got. Okay, so the proposed idea of creating individualized metadata pages for each dataset layer. These pages would include information about the respective dataset as well as detailed field definitions and descriptions. If TIMS were to enhance the data glossary to include these unique pages for each dataset in TIMS, what type of information would you like to see? So this would be a great place to add comments like include links to the REST endpoint. Any other ideas? Please share. Okay, and the layer listing. There are several ideas to enhance the way layers are presented in the map viewers. Display the layers in more of a list-like presentation versus buttons. Update how the layers are grouped. Added tools to search, sort, and filter the layers. Include many different predefined queries of layers in Create a Map versus having separate map viewers. Yeah, so let me touch on number 3. We didn't really talk about that, but in our meetings and brainstorming, adding that right-click context menu to the layers list, we would definitely like the option of initiating filter right there from that right-click menu. Okay, layers in the map viewers are currently organized into groupings. Do you feel that you like them the way they are? You want more groupings, less groupings? I don't know if I should share my opinion there. Would you like to see additional search and sorting options for the layers within the map viewer? So yeah, definitely want a search bar. Sorting, man, I don't know, that's complicated. Okay. Currently in TIMS, any customized layers are put into distinct map viewers. One proposed area for enhancements is to allow the user to search for, discover, and add such layers within Create a Map instead of having to navigate to the custom viewers. So here's an example of how that might look. Okay, so which of these features would you be interested in seeing? I'm going to go with both today. If we keep the concept of map viewers and TIMS, would you prefer all map viewers integrated into one version of Create a Map or the standalone pages? And then we give you a section to just share any thoughts or ideas. Then it will take you to section 3. So we'll get back to the presentation.
Are there any other questions at this time, Victoria?
There are not.
Okay, section 3. Tool usability. There are a lot of tools in TIMS. It can be a struggle for users without training to understand what tools are available in TIMS, where to access those tools, and how to use them. So what can we do to expose those tools in a more intuitive way? And then how can we improve user experience implementing those tools? Let's consider the Find Location tools first, right? Currently in TIMS, the users click Find Locations icon on the toolbar, and then they pick an option, and then each of those options opens to a different pane. What if we were able to consolidate these location search options into a search box? This is inspired by the search widget that we see in ArcGIS Online web apps. Users could pick just search all, or they could pick one of the search options to limit what is searched. And we could use tooltips for a description more than just the tool name, and give users a quick idea of what the tool does. In this case, we have the world's largest tooltip, so you let me know if you need them larger. Just kidding. Okay, and then we can consider integrating this element called a snack bar. I'm no web designer, but I do know how to Google, so hopefully I'm using that the right way. And we could use that to prompt users on what action is expected next. So say they selected search by PID, and then when they click into the search box to enter their PID, the snack bar could pop up at the bottom with a prompt letting them know what's expected next. And you may have seen this type of item pop up on websites when you hover over a hyperlink. They'll just show up as you hover, but we can actually integrate a lot of different actions into these, and then they can persist, or we can have them just automatically close after a certain amount of time. So there's another aspect to the Find Location tools, the click on map features for extracting coordinates or log points. So under those same tools, the option is to click on map, and then also under another icon in the tools menu, we have the links to Path, Web, and Map channel. And all of those require clicking on a map to return the desired result. So we could even group in the Identify tool here. And while we like the idea of being able to identify features without having to activate a tool for the print screens in this section, you'll see the Identify tool. Okay, so we could consider consolidating all of these, what I've grouped together and called Extract Location tools, into another right-click context menu. And then, if we want to consider how we do descriptions, I don't know that the tooltip bubbles will work well when we already have a pop-up window, but we could use the snack bar item for this as well. So if you hover over the tool, it will show you a description. And then if you click and activate a tool, that snack bar will refresh to show you a prompt of what's expected next. And I think we all like the idea of having our results come up in a pop-up window. So for example, the Identify tool, we've clicked on a county, and now we're looking at the attributes for that county record. And the great thing about the pop-up windows is you can copy and you can copy the text from these windows, and then the windows also stay visible until the user decides to close them out. You can also have tools in these pop-up windows, like we see the Zoom to link. So I think these would work also for returning the results for log points and coordinates as well, especially because we would have the ability to have these buttons and still be able to switch the format. Like we see the coordinates, you could switch between decimal degrees or degrees, minutes, seconds. Okay, so let's talk briefly about the filter data tools. And we already had a question about this. And this is a topic that I think is used a lot, and we hope to really streamline how these tools function. Even though I don't have a lot of pictures and slides in today's presentation, just know that it is a high priority. So just like the location tools, right now you select your option from a drop-down menu, and then there's a separate pane for each of the options: filter by attribute, filter by geography, filter by graphic. So let's first consider how we present these tools. Can we redesign the tools pane to expose all of the options at once for selecting the visible layer, and then also the type of filter? Does that make it a little easier to interact? Below the pick list, the pane could refresh depending on what option was chosen. So we're still using the same area of real estate, but the behavior would be different. Of course, do we need the ability to save filters? If you commonly come in and turn on a data set and then select it by a particular attribute, and you do that on a regular basis, how can we enable saving that? Is it saved as similar to a bookmark within your browser session? Or maybe you're able to extract it as a piece of SQL, an SQL statement? And then do we want to add a space? Obviously, you need to reload that or be able to paste in an SQL statement. So definitely give us your feedback on that. I think it might be a significant development effort, but if it's something that a lot of people would use, then we want to prioritize that. And of course, we'll want to look at the select by graphic tool. It's a little bit choppy right now, so hopefully there's new technologies that would make that smoother. And can we even consider just doing the click and drag across the map to select features? Okay, so there's still a lot of tools that we haven't talked about. How do we best organize, draw, bookmark, the add data, base map, print, share, all of those tools? Do we want to consider reorganizing everything into the side pane as a cascading menu? And usually the cascading menus, you would select an option and then another window opens beside it. It really takes up the real estate. So is it even possible to use idea of expanding and contracting behavior? So if you wanted to see the options for base map, it would expand and you could choose one, and then you could contract that again, so it's not taking up all the screen space. I don't even know if that's possible, guys, but I'm just dreaming. Or is it more useful to have a toolbar across the top? And we see this in a lot of, ArcGIS Online web apps or a lot of other different mapping applications. And the idea here is maybe just stretching it out, having more real estate for all of these options, other than just the small dark navy space that we use right now for the toolbar. So let us know what you think about that. Okay, and of course, I don't have visuals for this, but want to make sure that everybody knows we are considering the print templates, the PDF map templates, and of course, the default print template from the Create a Map page. We get a lot of feedback on that, and users wish that they could have the legend added, or the ability to customize that in any way. So we're definitely going to consider that as we move forward with development. So if you have any particular requests that you are always wanting to do with that print tool, make sure that you let us know. Okay, we're moving right along. So let's visit some questions about the tools. We'll go back over to our survey. Okay, so the find locations. So currently in tools, we have the separate interfaces. Would you like to see these integrated into a single search? Are there any other types of searches that you do commonly that you would like to be considered for this type of tool? And then this right-click context menu over the map frame. Do you like the idea of that? Does that seem intuitive enough? Will you know to right click? Do we need to have some other way that'll indicate where those tools are? And then let us know what kind of tools you would like to see. Okay, next question. How do you feel about having the results in the pop-up windows? And then what are your thoughts on handling the rest of the tools or all of the tools? Maybe we have pop-up, we have the right-click context menus, and we have things in a toolbar. But how do we organize that toolbar? What seems most intuitive for the way that you'll use TIMS? Is there any tool functionality that we don't have in TIMS at all that you would like to see us incorporate? If you have any thoughts about that, there's a place to enter. And then a space just to share any of your thoughts or ideas. Okay, section 4. Oh my God. I'm sorry, are you guys there?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I've got
Okay.
a question for you if you're ready for
hit
it.
Oh, great.
Okay, actually, another one just popped
Yeah,
in, so
do
let's
it.
do both. All right, the first one, any thoughts or strategies from ODOT to link to other data resources like ODNR? Just curious. They said it's not really a question.
So we do
I
have
think,
the capability.
yeah, go ahead.
We do have the capability in TIMS now to consume REST endpoints from other agencies, and we do that for various map viewers. But I don't think we've really considered, similar to how OGRIP offers a portal that has, numerous different agencies, data resources. I don't think we really considered opening TIMS up for that. If that's something that would be of benefit to the users, or you could see value in somehow integrating that capability somewhere in TIMS, that would be a great piece of feedback for the survey. I don't know if Ian or Katy, you guys have other thoughts on that?
I think you said it pretty well.
I think
it seems like a great idea, something that. Go ahead, Ian.
Oh, yeah, I was pretty much going to say the same thing. It's something we hadn't considered. I think it's a good idea for us to explore. And I can see a couple different ways of potentially achieving that. I think it's just trying to maintain those links to make sure that they're not broken would be the trick on our side. But again, I think there's ways to do that pretty smoothly.
Okay, you guys ready for the next question? All right, it says, since we, and we is in quotes, did not write the software to perform TIMS, is it imperative that it be connective and intuitive to those that do not use the system daily or even weekly?
Can you repeat
Well,
that?
I think, yeah, not.
Yeah, I can
Sorry, go
repeat
ahead, Katy, if you have an answer.
Well, if I'm interpreting it correctly, do we want to prioritize the workflows for users who don't use it every single day? I think, yeah, definitely. This is a publicly available application that's going to be used within our agency, but also many different types of agencies and companies outside of ODOT. So yeah, we definitely want to know how you're using TIMS, even if it's only a couple of times a year. We'd like to have that feedback.
Those are all the questions that we had, so you're good.
Steve or Ian, did you want to follow up?
I'm not sure I understood the question, but if Katy's answer was a good response to that, then I think we should roll with it.
Yeah, if the person who asked it wants to clarify further, they're welcome to put it in the question box, and I'll read it out next time we stop for questions.
Okay. All right, moving along, guys. Next section, data comprehension. So we know there's a lot we can do on the back end to clean up the attribute presentation, right? We can spend the time in our database development to order the fields more logically, hide system fields, and implement domain tables when we have data sets that have a lot of domain codes. Incorporate those domain tables so that we're able to display the descriptions instead of codes. And this is a very high priority in our next phase of TIMS. We don't really need your opinion on that because we know it needs to be done, and we're hopefully going to make a lot of improvements on that side. But as far as the application design is concerned, how can we enhance the presentation of the metadata and the layer symbols? So that's what we'll look at here. So again, here's a look at current TIMS for reference. And some of our field descriptions get quite lengthy, but in our current view in the data glossary, we have that character limit of 250. So it will cut off. We receive the descriptions from the data owners and we try to implement those, but they are cut off, unfortunately. So is it more important for you guys that we have data that is just more intuitive and easy to understand? You don't need huge paragraphs to describe what is in these fields, or is it more important for us to make space on the site to be able to navigate those long descriptions? And we already talked about accessing the metadata from the layers list. This is definitely something that we'd like to implement, whether it looks like this right-click menu or you've seen the 3-dot ellipses icons that indicates that there's something else there. However we are able to implement that, we see that in our next phase. So how about the description feature in the results table? Is this valuable? Is it enough if we improve access to the metadata where you can just right click and link directly to it? Or is this feature used enough that we want to enhance it so that it shows only the fields for that specific data set? And that's tricky. It might seem simple, but it's tricky because when you populate that results table, it's creating a temporary layer on the back end. And that's why it makes it a little more difficult. We can't just filter by a data set ID. So if it's, we want to know if it's really valuable for you guys. So with that, we put the effort into trying to enhance that. Okay, and the legend. We get a lot of comments on the legend. And right now, you have to click back and forth. And it's pretty standard in all of the web apps that I've searched around and looked for something different. This having 2 tabs seems pretty standard. But a lot of people would really like to see the symbols in the layer list. So we can consider adding all of those symbols to the layer list. You can expand and contract. Again, we put out a lot of options for things that could possibly be integrated into the layers list, and we need your feedback so we know what to prioritize. We can't put everything in there. So maybe it makes more sense that we just make this legend pane a resizable pane that you can view at the same time as the layers list, and you can resize it or shrink it down, or you can hide it completely to free up that screen space. Okay, so we'll go back over to our survey. All right. So overall, how do you think that we can make that navigating the field descriptions more user-friendly? And then let us know if you use that description feature in the results table. And if you do use it, oh yeah, do you see value? Okay. Yeah, if you do use it, is it important that we keep it there, or does it suit your needs if we enhance what you see in the data glossary? And the legend, do you use that legend tool? Do you switch back and forth? Do you prefer to see it as its own separate pane or separate window, or would you like to just have all those symbols incorporated as you're navigating through the layer list? Maybe you have an example of a site that you really like the way they've handled it, or you just have a wild and crazy idea of, wouldn't this be great if? So definitely share that there. All right, guys. Do we have any questions about that stuff? I'm going to keep going into the very last section. So I hope everyone's awake and enjoying and participating in the survey. Because in our last section today, we're just going to make sure we touch on the mobile application. It's a challenge to maintain a mobile environment and keep that balance between simplicity and functionality. So there are many tools and functions in TIMS that may or may not make sense to have in the mobile environment. So we're going to think about ways that we can streamline TIMS mobile and make sure that it's consistent still with the desktop version. All right, of course, a quick look at current TIMS. And we're going to consider how the menus are handled. So on the home page, you have this navigation drawer, right? You expand it and there's the links to all the pages. So it's just kind of the mobile version of the title bar. But then over in the map page, all of these, we don't have the title bar, and it probably made sense to use as much real estate for the map. And you can see all these options if you expand a menu on the left side of the screen. So does it make sense if we keep it consistent and have that page navigation always available at the top no matter what page you are on? And that navigation drawer, it could be smaller, right? It could just be a menu in the corner that will expand and contract, and you can link to all the pages. And of course, our idea of consolidating everything into a help page might work here too. So that would leave the menu on the tools page just for the tools interacting with the map. So that kind of pares that down a little bit. And it would be a little more consistent with the desktop version. Can we even consolidate all of the tools and functions into this area on the screen? So let's consider the identify tool. So if you click a feature to identify, instead of having it there on the bottom of the screen and then switching back and forth to the results table, maybe it's again its own pop-up window in the top. And currently when you do an identify in mobile and you've clicked on multiple records, it tries to show you all those records. So can we incorporate that arrow to click through the different records like we see in desktop? And one final thing that I know that we'll want to consider and get some feedback on, I think I might have to go back a couple. Right, so this search tool that you see at the top in the mobile environment, where you can search not only by PID, but by SFN and CFN. We don't have that search capability available in desktop right now. So if that's something that you think would be really useful in the full desktop version, give us some feedback on that. Okay, and we're gonna wrap it up, guys. Our last questions, and then we'll have some time to chat.
We did get a follow-up from Richard.
Okay.
If you want to hear that now.
Yes.
Okay. So
yes, let's do it.
All right, here we go. The system needs to be intuitive to use for the non-frequent user. One suggestion is for questions/alternatives to be contextive. There is a wealth of information, but drilling down to find what the user's looking for can be daunting and frustrating. It's there, but can be hard to find. I like the idea of what do you want to do today? And that's what do you want to do today is in quotes. Then the user enters a word or word string that expands for other contextive options, or enter do my accident search method. This would assemble all my items in between steps automatically.
Yeah, okay. So the idea of like incorporating a macro and save those steps to re-execute. And then, so we are hoping that this navigation tool or search tool will provide a really intuitive way for users to discover where they can get started and what they can accomplish right there on the TIMS homepage. We've also considered creating some tutorial videos, just short clips that can be added to the help page. So if a user would know to go to that help page, there would be those tutorials available. But maybe just incorporating, like you said, the what would you like to do today feature that you see on some apps these days. If maybe we had just like a scrolling status bar across the top, that kind of gives you ideas like, oh, hey, do you want to link to a video that shows you how to search for crash data? Something like that we could consider.
Hey, Katie, can I jump in? I think
Yes,
I think that
please.
question kind of hits the nail on the head of what we're trying to accomplish with enhancements. We know that we have a powerful tool that's been used, for several years now, and there are lots of shortfalls, but it also works great for many things. And the whole idea of enhancements are how do we just overall make it easier to find data, to find tools, to use the application. And I think that's what we're trying to accomplish, is that overall ease of use and streamlining workflows. As for those really custom workflows and how can we, create something that you can save, you can run a workflow, save that, and then come back to that. I'm not sure that that's really going to be in the scope of these enhancements. I like the idea that you bring up, and I think that's a great idea, for future consideration. But I'm not quite sure if the technology is caught up to that, and if that is something that we can really facilitate with these enhancements. But as much as we can, we would like to streamline those workflows by making it easier to get to X, Y, and Z, and maybe save some of your filters if we can figure out a way to do that. But I don't see a way that you can just click a button and then it just does all the work that you've done previously, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Stephen. I think that was very well answered.
Well, there's no other questions in the question box right now. So
okay.
What we can do too, if people are interested, is they can raise their hand and I can unmute them too to ask questions.
Okay, let's give that a shot.
Yep. We'll give it a couple of seconds here. It's much easier to raise your hand than to type in the long question. I don't see any hands raised, so it looks like you guys
overall
are good to go.
Okay. Overall, thank you everyone who attended, and I hope that you fill in the survey and help us shape the new version of TIMS. I guess soon they're working on the process to put out the RFP and get started on the development process. So if you're on that side of application world, then keep an eye out for that. And otherwise, have a great day.
One last question just came in. It says, how long will the survey be available?
Okay.
I don't think we really planned on taking it down anytime soon. So if you have people that weren't able to attend the webinar and you wanted to pass along the presentation and the survey, we're absolutely open to that. We are, as Katie mentioned, we're in the process of, putting down hard requirements that we can then advertise and come up with a path to build. And so I would imagine that probably in the next month or so, we will have a good idea of what we are considering. So let's just go with that. Let's say we'll leave the survey up until the end of March.
Sounds good.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. And as long as the technology cooperated, we'll be sending you out a link to the video, so feel free to share it with others. Have a good rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you so much, Victoria.
Yep.
Okay,
Thanks, Victoria.
Bye-bye.